एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू आवर यूट्यूब चैनल। और आज का जो हम टॉपिक कवर करेंगे, हम मैकियावेली के बारे में बात करेंगे। बिफोर दैट वी हैव यूपीएससी सीएसई असाइनमेंट चैलेंज ऑन इंडियन पॉलिटी and you will win exciting prizes for top 3 winners under Sir Atish. Unacademy Aspire is providing you with the All India free mock test for the civil servant aspirants under UPSC CSE Prelims of 2021 Paper 1 JS, and it will be conducted on every 10th and 25th of every month. And you will also win exciting prizes and scholarship for top 50 rank holders. And it will be conducted on 25th October at 10 a.m. sharp. So please mark this date on your calendar and enroll for this. Now, why shouldn't you miss this test? First, that this is like the all India rank. It will provide you all India rank. And second, that this test is basically made and curated by our expert educators who experience the actual UPSC CSE level. Third, that this will also give you test analysis by our top educators. Fourth, we have detailed performance report and competitive stats to know about the basically where you stand. And fifth is that you will also win exciting prizes and scholarship only for the and this will be only live test takers. And this exam pattern will also give you like the real exam experience, like it is conducted in UPSC. And we have general studies 1, and we have objective type, and we have 100 questions for 200 marks, and the duration is for 2 hours, and we have negative marking also. So let's now know about the prize money and win prize and scholarship. Will get up to 5 lakh. So we have rank 1 to rank 3 will get UPSC CSE 6-month subscription, and rank 1 to 10 will get Amazon voucher for 10,000, and rank 11 to 30 will get a voucher for 5,000, and rank from 31 to 50 will get a voucher for 3,000. So this is like a really good package for all the students. So this syllabus will be of JS paper, in which we have prelims 1 paper that will have current affairs of national and international importance. That means it will contain GK. Second, we have history of India and Indian national movement. Then we have Indian geography, world geography, which will contain physical, social, economic geography of India and the world. We have Indian polity and governance, that contains constitution, political system, panchayati raj, public policy, rights and issues. We have economic and social development, in which we'll have sustainable development, poverty, inclusion, demographic, social sector initiatives also. And then we have general issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity, climate change, that actually don't require any subject specialization, but you still need to know about them. And then we have like general science. So this is how your detailed analysis report will be. So you will get to know about your total marks score over here. Then you have your correct, incorrect answers. And then you will know about your unanswered also. And over here we'll give you your rank. So this is like your overall performance, and this is like the topper's performance. So it'll give you analysis also. So if you complete your preparation for UPSC CSE 2020 to 21 with the free live classes and test on Unacademy, you can click more to know about this. You need to just enroll now for free, and the link is given in the description box. And the Unacademy UPSC CSE assignment challenge is also there. So what do you need to do over here is just that you need to participate in Unacademy UPSC assignment challenge, and you will watch the special classes that is listed below, and you need to attempt that assignment or quiz. The class link is given in the description. So the 3 performers of each class will stand to win the prizes and vouchers, and you can enroll for the classes to get notified about it. We have UPSC CSE assignment challenge on the most important topics of NCERT by Aarti ma'am. We have UPSC CSE assignment challenge on Indian history by Anuj sir. And we have the challenge on Indian geography by Sudarshan sir. And we have assignment challenge on art and culture by Dipanshu sir. So let's start our topic. So let's start about Machiavelli. So Machiavelli gained like a lot of immense fame in terms of developing the political thought, because he was an Italian Renaissance historian, politician, diplomat, philosopher, humanist, and a writer. And he was also like referred as the originator of the modern political science. And he held this position that the senior official in the Florentine Republic for many years, with the responsibilities in diplomatic and military affairs. He also wrote comedy, carnival songs, and poetry. So Machiavellism is also like used for a very negative term to basically categorize the unprincipled politician that was sort of Machiavelli that he described in The Prince. So Machiavelli defined that the immoral behavior such as the deceitfulness and killing of the innocents as being as a very normal and effective tool in politics, and he basically looked to endorse some of these techniques in many situations. So this book itself is basically gained a lot of attention by some readers because it demanded the writer to was imparting the evil and providing the evil recommendation to the oppressors to help them to maintain their own power. Now, the term Machiavellian, as we know, is often related to the political decisiveness and the real politics. But many critics, such as the Spinoza, Rousseau, Dennis, also argued that the Machiavelli was like an actual republican. But when his writing, the Prince and his writings were taken like inspiration from the Enlightened period that were basically advocates of the modern democratic political philosophy. But over here, Machiavelli was first to state this systematically to uncover the power politics in view by laying down the new foundation of science that was similar to the Galileo's that became the very basis of the modern science of nature. So Machiavelli recognized the politics as the proper struggle for acquisition, maintenance, and the consolidation of the political power. So an analysis was developed by Hobbes and Harrington in the 17th century. And we have Alexander, James Madison, we have Robert Miles, we have Robert Dahl, we have David Eston, Henry Morgenthau, and many other writers who gave this similar theory in 19th and 20th century. So the Machiavelli's literature just does not belong to like any particular realm of political theory, but he wrote mainly in of the process of government and by the means in which the state may have made a very strong and the policies which they increased with the power and the of the errors that actually lead to the decline and destruction. So even the Professor Dunning said the Machiavelli philosophy was a study of the art of government rather than just a theory of a state. So as a theorist, we can see over here that Machiavelli turned out to be a very dominant figure in the realistic political theory. So this was like very crucial to the European statecraft during the period of Renaissance. So the two famous books were written by him was the Discourses and the Prince, which were very written in very anticipation of refining the conditions of northern Italian principalities, and but became a very general handbooks for a new style in the politics. So now let's discuss about the Prince. As we know, the Prince famous work, the Machiavelli, was certainly like proclaimed to be a theoretical break with all the previous principles, because the previous principles were based on on the moral, ethics, values, and religious systems of thought. So unlike his classical and medieval thinkers, who took basically the political bearings from transcendental ballet to being sanctioned conception of justice, Machiavelli was oriented towards himself to find out the eventual effectful truth of politics, such as how the world actually is, instead of finding out how the world should be or ought to be. So he intended to basically giving a very realistic advice to the Prince, basically to intended to disregard all the previous social belief like respective forms of political reflection that was given before. So the Prince is a very like adorable writing of Machiavelli in the piece because it talks about the history of political philosophy. But although there is perhaps no philosophical thing as compared as the Discourses have. So this famous book basically like rest on very objective, pragmatic approach, and even to the cynicism to the political actions. So Machiavelli makes like certain observations about how the actual conduct of political leaders, and he looks at whether or not they should achieve the result and they should set out to achieve. So he then uses this consideration on the basis of practical recommendation, and these recommendations should be like frequently go against the common morality also. So it is not just obvious that Machiavelli just wanted to accomplish by writing. The Prince in his the dedicatory letter, he appears to be like requesting a job for his government, and it has been noted that he undermines his own case in terms of some advice that he gives in his own work. So the innovative aspect of Prince is that there is a proper separation of politics and ethics. So classical political theory was basically traditionally linked to the political law with the higher and moral law. But on the contrary, we can say that Machiavelli's content, the political action must always be like considered in the light of practical magnitudes rather than some disdainful ideal. So how are there are like ideas, how can we acquire power? So we can see in the Prince, Machiavelli basically discovers the world governments, and the ruler develops some kind of revolutionary ideas for a prince to acquire the leading position in the government and maintain its own authority and leadership. So the philosopher does not just teach about the rule to be good or just. His aim is to provide the governor with the practical application of being a great prince and not the good one. So Machiavelli focuses on the evil features most because they would like help him to advance his power of the prince. So in his book, it does not like just seem that an evil or cruel behavior is actually very intolerable one, but he modifies the moral language about the vice and the good. So in the book, Machiavelli begins with a dedication to his government, and he finishes with an assertion that the Italy must also like gain some considerable power and make some changes in their own system. So the chapter 15 in his book, Machiavelli clearly indicated that many have actually imagined that the republics and principalities in his Italy, that they had never been seen or known that exists the truth. For far from being the how one's live or one should be, they should also like look into that he who lets go is what to be done for what should be done in order to learn his ruin rather than his preservation. So this passage basically suggests that the Plato's republic, in which he reposes the philosopher king, should govern the society. So the governors like had to be like good and just, and they must not help their subjects to maintain their purity of their souls, as also that they need to be good. So the prince we can see that a ruler should read about the historical works, especially in the light that they should shed some actions on the eminent men and to impersonate some of the well-known man for the worthy praise and glory. So we can see over here, though the Machiavelli was like concerned with an actual truth for the matter and not just the ideal one, he compares the prince to a prophet, and which does not essentially mean that he has celestial knowledge. Instead, it gives them exceptional responsibilities like the lawmaking, shaping the opinions that govern our lives. Therefore, we can see that Machiavelli's visionary as a prince has become the philosopher's feature, as he tries to change the human opinion over the justice and evil. So he acts as if he's very good, and he does not have to be good. So to support his conclusion, Machiavelli like emerged with a very extreme examples of the Roman and the Cain's murders of Remus and Abel were worth it. So these murders were basically like the fundamentals of a society, and therefore the philosopher asserts that there is no good is possible without being evil. So therefore he tries to redefine the Plato's philosophies and of the philosopher king, who were based on the approach of pure reason to be good and just. So on the contrary, we can see the Machiavelli gives example of the extraordinary situation and draws a proper line between morality that would be like flawlessly fit in this situation. So Machiavelli book also like differentiates between the subject of a free will, and the medieval and Renaissance philosopher basically looked on to the religion or the ancient authors who gave clarifications on the plagues, famines, invasions, and other catastrophes. So they considered that this was like the actual deterrence for such disease to be beyond the human power. So in the Prince, we can see when Machiavelli claims that the people have a proper ability to safeguard themselves against the hardship, he actually articulates that as an astonishing confidence in the power of human self-determination, and confirms his belief in the free will as opposed to the divine fortune. So since we can see that they were the first to like publish about the Machiavelli's idea, have also been like overgeneralized and disparate. So his political thought is usually like and unethically defined solely in terms of the prince. So the adjective of Machiavelli is also used to mean basically to be manipulative, deceptive, and ruthless. But the Machiavelli's discourses is a work which is actually very longer and much more developed than the prince, because it expounds the republican subjects on patriotism, civic virtue, and open to all the political participation. So we can see for Machiavelli, the capacity for like such acts is not just like the aberration of the political art, but it is also like essential part of the ruler's skill set. So he gives a very stark realism and a hard break with the classical Christian tradition has also like read to the denouncement of the Machiavelli as being very immoralist and an advisor to the tyrants or a teacher of a evil. So we can see others have also like defended the prince because the author was like very realistic appraisal towards his politics, and his shrewd psychological insights and the tough-minded advice for a dangerous world. So Machiavelli also like composed like several minor works such as the shorter political and historical texts, poetries, plays, and the most common of these were the Art of War, a dialogue on a military affairs, and the life of a like a model that was a literary model for the Florentine historians also. So we can see in this poetry as well as his correspondence, there were like many alternative formulations of some of his views that he presents in the two major political works. The urging to the penitents was one of his last writings, is a discourse, and thus he creates a very inquisitiveness among the Machiavelli's political thoughts. So now let's talk about the moral indifferences. So Machiavelli basically does not believe in very ethical doctrines or any divine law because of the intentional segregation from the politics from religion. So in Machiavelli's thinking, we can see the moral judgments were basically wholly subordinated and to the existence of political and temporal existence and the welfare. And third, we can see that Machiavelli was considered that the institution of papacy brought decline and destruction to the magnificence of the Rome. He wanted to practice all these virtues of cunningness, duplicity, and like craving to basically like achieve all the successful goals over there. And then we see that Machiavelli did not just all refute the brilliance of the moral virtues, but he snubbed to accept them as very essential to their political stability. So he pleads that religion must be basically skillful and exploited as a very useful defense to achieve the annexing of designs by the sovereign. So Machiavelli clearly like standouts bravely in the preservation of his state, and he stated that there must be like no consideration on what is just or unjust. So he was like merciful or cruel, and he was glorious or shameful. So on the contrary, we can see like everything must be overlooked. He also like communicated the priority that should be given to the state, and he puts it above the morality and religion, because it is the highest form of like social organization, and it is like very essential for all the institution for the protection and promotion of the human welfare. So Machiavelli's whole support of like unreligious and the indifferences to all the morality has also like become so much interpreted in his name, and has become a very word for the fraud and force and dishonesty. So he wrote primarily for the adoration for or the state. Now, in the contemporary world, we can see that some of the states had like performed a prince of Machiavelli by freezing like all channels of human progress, liberty, and also by reducing its citizen to that of animals and slaves. So the prince and the discourses are like a very modern theories and are being like practiced in a many secular countries of modern phase. So during the last like 500 years, the prince has been like a choice for the several political leaders like the Louis 14, then Napoleon, and Mussolini, because it was purely based on the technical lessons that one can learn from its book. So it was like very beneficial to all the politicians, no matter what their ideologies are. So we can also see that this may have like contributed to the popular conviction of the book must be a manual on how to gain power by the means of necessary with no regard of how should you use that power. This was a basic Shakespearean view of the man as a very murderous Machiavelli. So there was also like a very long tradition of constructing the Machiavelli's work as a very pure patriotic appeals. The idea can also be found in the Hegel, and in the during 19th century we can talk about the Italian Risorgimento also. So Machiavelli was also known a very early supporter of the Italian unity. So many thinkers like clearly observe that discourses were the seeds for the modern republicanism. Even the Jean-Jacques Rousseau also even puts forward the theory of discourses that Machiavelli presents his true republican view, while the Prince was just an ironic work. So we can also say that it's said that Machiavelli's republicanism is not just based on his morally principles, but it can also be on the immoral consideration that a republic is simply more powerful and enduring political and military mechanism. So actually we can see the discourses on Livy are often labeled as a Machiavelli's book on republic, but this is not the like completely true, because the discourses provide a very different viewpoint of politics. So the work is a defense of republics as a best form of government for preserving liberty, security, because the power should be like shared between the lower and upper class. So there should never be an institution which allows the few to decide on any matter in which the ordinary course of things is very essential to the maintenance of the commonwealth. So he does focus on republics, ancient and modern, but he also like debates on monarchies and princedoms. So we can see that his advice like given in the Prince is often like relevant to the leaders of republics. So therefore we can see that however a tension between the republicanism and the discourses or the autocracy of the Prince, for the same the author also like champions for the cause of liberty and self-government in the former, and he gives advice of preserving the one man rule in the later. So it is very possible to find out a common thread in Machiavelli's modern analysis that is very realistic and historical. And he views that the Prince is an like a special example in the political science and discourses as the course of the science, as well as he gives like its heart of his political dogma. We can also presently see that Machiavelli in the discourses has gained a very attention by the scholars for revitalizing the republican custom of the modern world. So Machiavelli's inheritance of the like the studiist was the in the political science, and many of his like essays has basically claimed that his goal was to comprehend and understand as well as explain the political phenomena in terms of scientific terms. So we can see like although this was like a very contentious statement that was made his true aims, his like influence on the political science was also like undisputable. And in Machiavelli belief, we can also see that the Christian should not just restrain in the political activity, and the matters of government should also be like solely secular. So the philosopher tries to strive to create a new republic which would also deal with the practical issues without just asserting on the majestical moral law. So the famous scholar of the Stephen like Smith also like proclaimed that that it is not only did this Machiavelli like bring some of the new worldliness to the politics, he introduced a very new kind of populism, as the Plato and Aristotle like imagined the aristocratic republic should be, and how they should like invest their power in the aristocracy on the education virtue. So Machiavelli was deliberately trying to seek to enlist the power of the people against the aristocracy of the education and virtue. So in order to maintain like such a state, the republic has to be a very imperialistic, ambitious, and they need to be also belligerent. Now let's talk about his outlook towards the religion. So we can see the innovation of Machiavelli's writing was an attitude towards his religion and the morality, which were basically differentiated from all those who headed him. So he was sarcastic in his attack on the church and its urge for the failure in order to provide a moral aspiration to its people. So he also wrote that we Italians then owe to the Church of Rome that the priests have become irreligious and bad, but we owe her a very like a still greater debt, and one in which will cause for the ruin for our ruin is namely the church has kept, and still it keeps our country divided. So the Machiavelli was an anti-church and the anti-clergy, but not anti-religion. He measured religion as a very essential not only for man's social life but also for his health, affluence of the state. So it was like very important within the state because it was influencing, it exercised over the political life in general. So Machiavelli's boldness towards religion was strictly a utilitarian approach, and it was a social force also which played a very important crucial role in that was appeal to the self centralness of man, and through its principle to reward and punishment, thereby by inducing a proper behavior and good conduct that was like very necessary for a well-being of the society. So religion was basically like determined the social, ethical standards, value that was directed towards the human conduct and action. Even the William also said that the Machiavelli's opinion were based on all the moral, and religion basically gives us light about his belief in the authority of power over our social values. He has so sense in religion that as a deep personal experience and mystical element in religion, its supernatural and supranatural character is an alien to his own attitude. Yet he has a very positive outlook towards religion because although religion becomes a very important tool for influencing, controlling the minds of the people by the ruler. So the Machiavelli tries to like visualize the religion by the poor man's reason, ethics, morality were put together. Whether religion exists is very easy to introduce the armies and discipline. So when appraising this theoretical dogma, it was also like demonstrated that the Machiavelli's political theories were not just created in a systematic manner, but he was like trying to put forward in forms of remark in terms of the like particular situation that may arise. Even the professor Sabine also said that the Machiavelli's the character of Machiavelli and the true meaning of philosophy has also been like one of the paradoxes of the modern history, and he has been like represented as an utter cynic and an impassioned patriot, an ardent nationalist, political Jesuit, a convinced democratic, and everything after the favor of the despots. So we can see in each of their views, it's very incompatible as they are very like probably an element of truth. So other like political philosopher also drew inspiration and further did develop a very solid and the most important political notion such as the concept of state and its true meaning from Machiavelli. So Professor Stein also said that Machiavelli was more than any other political thinker that created the meaning that has been attached to the state in the modern political usage. So Machiavelli was also like considered as the father of modern political theory and political science. So apart from like giving the conjecturing about the state, he has also like given a meaning to the concept of sovereignty. So Machiavelli's position was also like in order to provide an outlook that accepted both the secularization and the moralization of politics. He took politics like out of the context of theological logic and subordinated the moral and subordinated moral philosophy to the necessities of the political existence and people's welfare. So the absence of religious arguments in Machiavelli also like led to the theorists who followed by challenging the issues like the order, power strictly in terms of political terms. So we can see that the Machiavelli was the first who gave the idea of secularism, and Machiavelli's state was to begin with the complete sense when there was like then it was becoming a secular state. So Machiavelli was the first rationalist or the realist in the history of political thought. His technique and his approaches were basically to the problems of politics were guided by common sense, history, and his ideas were a groundbreaking nature because they had a very substance, and he brought politics in a line with the political practice. So by like emphasizing on the importance of study of history, Machiavelli recognized a method that was extremely beneficial. So Gramsci even acclaimed the greatness of Machiavelli for separating the politics and ethics. Now let's conclude our presentation. So Machiavelli's political doctrine was a discerning, especially in terms of situation when there is like unpredictability or a substantial change. He was also known for a transitional figure was standing in a midway between the medieval and the modern political thought. So he was a historian who actually laid the foundation of the new science of politics by assimilating all the contemporary history with the ancient past. So he gave a new theory for everyone which is practical in a present day. So his famous writing The Prince was a playbook or manual sorts for leadership where the government needs to be created or stabilized. So Machiavelli is also considered as the first political theorist to reject the ancient viewpoint, which was characterized by a happiness is a goal. A very well-formed society, like we can talk of, we have every one in their place and peaceful with a holistic philosophical including all the facets of existence, ontology, nature of and gods who actually control the fates of humanity. He was also like a very amazingly influence on the modern civilization because the first of Machiavelli's opinions were based on the politics, political leaders, and affected that how the political leaders would run their own countries. And after that, the Machiavelli also gave also had also influenced the future modern Western civilization in the comparison to the Renaissance artists at that period of time.